everyone, and welcome to our fourth international episode of our podcast Millennials. Just to update our newcomers, in this podcast we talk about our generation's current topics. The first episode was about life in India, the second one about beauty with Ms. Mayot, the third one about traveling, brain drain and artificial intelligence. And today we are going to put ourselves in shoes of recently graduated, those that are looking for a job and don't really know where to start, how to write a CV or letter of motivation, and in general what to prepare for an interview. Simply people who don't know what they will eat for dinner, but are supposed to answer questions like, where do you see yourself in 50 years?
Yes, so now we're in the months of summer, we're in July and August. Many of us finished our university degrees. We took well-deserved break, maybe a little party, as long as the COVID situation allows us. But soon, our parents will kick our lazy asses out of the home and to the job market. So, we're no longer babies and we have to finance our shenanigans ourselves. For this reason, we have invited Thomas Pleunis, who is the head of talent acquisition, so that we can discuss all of these topics with somebody who can actually understand it. So, hello Thomas, how are you doing?
Hey Dennis, good, thanks. Good to be here, man.
So, Dennis, I really appreciate doing this episode right now because I'm looking for a job, not my first one actually, but there is always something to learn or to improve, so I'm really excited to learn something new and use it during my job interviews, right? So, let's go! So there's going to be a jingle. Dun, dun, dun. Let's start the journey. I mean, when I say start, where do I actually start? Thomas, I want to find a job. Where do I look for it? There's so many platforms like LinkedIn. What is the most used platforms by recruiters?
Wow, yeah, that's actually a very good question because that depends, right? So, for instance, I work and live in the Netherlands at a company called Worldline. And we are in the payment industry. We deliver digital payments for a trusted world. That's what we say. So we help merchants, companies to process transactions. So when you buy something in online in a web shop, the chances there that you will pay through our platform. But also if you pay in a restaurant, there's a chance you will pay on one of our point of sale devices where you type in your code, right? If you use your credit card or your debit card. We are active in 51 countries around the world. 51, 52. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. But that means that we also have to focus on different platforms per country. So for instance, in France, you have a platform that's called Welcome to the Jungle. Young people and early career starters are looking around at that platform to find a job. In the Netherlands, LinkedIn is by far the biggest platform where people look for jobs. So that's also, it's a bit the chicken and the egg story, right? Because if companies post their jobs on certain platforms, people will have to go there. But also if people look around on certain platforms, companies will have to be there. They need to have a presence. Mm-hmm. So I would say LinkedIn and Indeed are the biggest platforms across the globe.
When I found a job I like, I guess the basis is CV and the motivation letter. For you, what are the do's and don'ts when compiling the perfect CV?
That's also a pretty good question, right? Again, it depends because it depends on the job that you will apply for. In general, motivation letters should be short and snappy. Because you have to imagine, right? If you get into the head of a recruiter, usually what happens when a job opens up, a hiring manager asks permission to hire within small companies to the board of directors, to the CEO, and he says, or he or she says, hey, I need to fill a new job for these and these and these reasons. And that can be someone is leaving the company, so we need to fill that job with someone else. Someone is moving within the company, so is making a promotion or starting another job. So we need someone else to fill the role. The team is growing, the company is growing, we create a new role. When that happens, they start to write a job description and they publish the job online. And then you, as a candidate, you will find that role, or a company will find you if you get headhunted by a recruiter. If you take a look at the specific job, you can say, hey, I'm an early career starter. I need to have some motivation because I know that a lot of people will be applying for this job. Then you write a motivational letter. If you know that there probably are not a lot of people applying for the job, then you can skip the motivational letter, right? Mm-hmm. Because recruiters don't have to go through a lot of applicants. Mm-hmm. In general, if recruiters need to go through a lot of applicants, they move super fast. So they will probably look at your CV for maybe 20 seconds. Mm-hmm. So they open your CV. The first thing that they do is check the header. And they made screen recordings of recruiters checking CVs on their computer, on their screen. And then what you see is they check the top, they check the layout, and then you see a lot of red spots, because in the screen recordings you see a lot of red spots if you record it, and if you see the movement of the mouse pointer and stuff like that. Wow. Okay. And then you see they take a look at education, boom, 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 and after that they check the most recent experience. So what is really, really important, they go from top to bottom. So the most important information you put on top, right? Mm-hmm. Which is, of course, your name, but don't make it too big. And after that, you write an introduction about yourself. So there are a lot of tools online that will help you to create a very good CV, or a good resume, right? Which is another word for the same exact thing. And then you write an introduction about yourself, and then you start with your most recent experience. And that can be, if you just graduated, your most recent experience is that you graduated. But for you, for instance, it could be, hey, I did these and these and these internships, and I graduated. In general, a CV, if you're an early career starter, should only be 1 page. If you are the CEO of a big multinational, or if you have a lot of work, like 10 years working experience, 3-4 jobs maybe, 2 pages maximum. So if a CV is more than 2 pages, that's a real bummer for a recruiter. And usually you're like, it's not snappy enough, cannot summarize, cannot leave out less important information.
What about people who have who have no experience? Like, what do they put there? How would you advise somebody who has just finished school? Maybe did some bartender work or something like that, who do not have much experience, but they would like to get a chance.
Yeah, so, I mean, if we're still talking about the CV, right? Mm-hmm. So, it depends on what you want. Let's say you graduated from a university, you got your master's degree, you did a lot of bartending, and you're applying for a job, right? That's the situation. And then you just keep it really short and snappy. Mm-hmm. And you put your most recent experience on there, that you've been bartending during university, during your college years, which is fine. But then as a recruiter, I would check, hey, this person graduated in economics and has been a bartender during university. What are the grades that this person got, right? Because if this person really dedicated all the time in the world to studying and to getting very good grades, and has been bartending, perfect. But if this person has been studying for 4 or 5 years, been a bartender, and got like maybe a 5.5 out of 10 for everything he or she took an exam for, or got a C minus, then I start to think, right? Because then it's like, this is really... Yeah. So it's not only one thing, right? It's really connecting the dots, and that's what you do if you scan a CV. Mm-hmm.
And Thomas, I have one more question concerning the CV. I don't know if I'm right. Correct me if I'm wrong. The CV should be different. I don't know, depending the country. Like, for example, I know that maybe in Europe or in France, but I'm not doing really the introduction in my CV. And when I was applying for the US or for Australia, the introduction was like obligatory. Are there some differences when I'm writing my CV, I don't know, in Slovakia, in France, or in the US that are different, or for example, the age, or my picture, or the sex, or some stuff like this?
So in general, I would say that if companies take recruitment very seriously, then they filter out for discrimination in any sense of the word. So that means your sex, your sexual preference, your age, your gender. There are tools available that will filter out everything in a CV. I would say, if you want to put a picture on your CV, put a picture on your CV. If you don't, then you don't. But you have to keep in mind that people will be biased if you put a picture on your CV, because that's how people work, right? So I'm not saying one person is doing a better job than another in recruiting people, because that's of course true. But I'm biased as well. So I might be a very, very good recruiter, but I'm always biased.
Does this have to do with attractiveness?
Well, I don't know. I think it could be, yeah. But I mean, if you talk about bias, you have a lot of forms of bias, right? Mm-hmm. You can stereotype. You have the information bias, the selection bias, and confounding bias. But I mean, if you talk about selection bias, this is really what we are talking about. And then you can say with discrimination, exploitation, sexism, intercultural conflicts. Mm-hmm. So I would always say keep it as neutral as possible. But the picture can help, right? If you're friendly, if you're laughing, it can be very convincing.
That's what I was thinking, like it's a thin ice to walk on, because it can really give a good impression if you have a good picture where you're smiling, where you feel like friendly and welcoming.
Always make sure you look in the camera, and you smile, and you look friendly. I mean, that's really important, right?
I had a picture where I looked like a potato on my CV for a long time, then I had to change it.
Yeah, I mean, that's in general a good thing, I think. Yeah, or just leave the picture. Yes. Just leave it, right? But if companies are doing a good job, they filter out all that kind of information, so they only keep the information that really matters.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch a little bit on the letter of motivation, because Thomas, can you tell when it's a copy paste? When people just change the name of the company and
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think in general it's better if you write a very short message each time you apply for a job, and you make it personal towards the recruiter, towards the company, towards the hiring manager, than if you use a template.
But what should I say? Well, in the short message, should I say like, "Oh, this is me. I am very interested in this. This is why, and let's talk about it more in an interview."
Or let's use the example of the person that has been a bartender, right? During university, during the college years. And let's assume this person didn't do anything else in internships or whatsoever. Then you could say, "Hey, I'm super interested in your company because of these and these and these reasons. This is why I want to work with you. I'm applying for this job because A, B, C, D, E, F, G," and then you express your interest. "And I think I could be a right fit because of this and this and this and this experience that I have." You could make the link. Let's say you're applying for a job as a recruiter. Then you could make the link between being a bartender and becoming a recruiter, because it's all about hospitality and it's all about delivering an experience. So you could say delivering an experience in a bar or in a restaurant. You could compare that to delivering an experience to a candidate, because in the end you want them to have a good experience. You want them to like the food. You want them to like your company. You want them to be positive towards other people. In the end, you want them to have a good time while they're being with you. So you could make that comparison between being a bartender. I used to be a bartender and becoming a recruiter. So to summarize, right? You start with, "I want to join your company because I'm interested in your company because of these and these and these reasons. I'm interested in this job because this and this and this, and this is what I have to offer. And I think I'm a good fit because A, B, C, D, E." But keep it short. I mean, it could be 4, 5, 6 lines, 10 maximum. And you could also do that in an email. That's also fine. So what you also see is people apply for a job, then they find out who the recruiter is, and then they send an email to that recruiter. "Hey, I applied for this job."
How do you see this? Isn't this a little bit invasive?
I don't know why that would be. I mean, if you apply for the job and you say, "Hey, I just applied. I know probably a lot of people are applying for this job at the moment. I just want you to let you know that I'm really, really interested in this role."
Oh, they took it one step further. Maybe that's a good thing in the end.
Yeah, and they are proactive. Yeah. And usually people appreciate that.
Yeah.
And the letter of motivation, it shouldn't be longer than 1 page, right? We shouldn't go like 2 pages or something like that. Like no one is going to read it, right?
I wouldn't.
Yeah, it happened to me. It happened to me when I was like, I also mentioned this in the letter of motivation, and the person I've had my interview with was like, "Oh, I didn't read it. I don't have time for that."
No. I mean, and it's not about not being interested. It's just about basically what you tell in a motivational letter. A lot of people tell the same.
Yeah.
And I can imagine that if you apply at companies that really are demanding that letter, they will tell you in the application. So we expect a motivational letter.
Okay.
So in the job advert, they will tell you we expect a motivational letter. So I don't know. Let's maybe a big consulting firm expects that you deliver a motivational letter, but they will tell you.
So guys, pro tip: pay attention in the job description if they require it or not.
Absolutely. And I think what's really important is that if you usually you have the option to add a motivational letter to upload it, then just keep it short. 10 lines, that's it. Not even 1 page.
Can I just, one more question about the letter of motivation. So we took the example of the bartender, so this person that never had a job. If I'm a person that I had like like me, for example, that I had like 3-4 internships, then I had a job before and stuff. Am I supposed to mention all of these in my letter of motivation, or is it enough if I did it in my CV?
So basically, if you think your CV is not explaining enough about what you did, you can put it in a motivational letter. But I think, and then we make the jump to the CV again. In the CV, it's always good to say, I've been responsible for A, B, and C. But what's really important is that you show and that you write down what you achieved. So let's say in your internship, Denis, you've been responsible for writing a data protection policy, whatever. That's a responsibility. You've been responsible for delivering that policy and not even to implementing it, but to writing that policy. Well, what did you achieve? So what did you achieve by writing that policy, by creating that policy, by doing the research? What did you achieve? And what did you learn? So I achieved that our company has a better data protection and that we are helping our merchants in improving their business and protecting their customers in a better way and their own business in a better way. That's what you've achieved. What did you learn? Right? What did you, because you do an internship, you don't do it for the money, right? It's nice if you get a little bit of money, if you get a little bit of pay, because that's also has to do with feeling valued, being appreciated by a company. You do it because you want to learn something. So what did you learn? So I think that's really important. I've been an intern for data privacy. I've worked on this. This has been my responsibility, and this is what I learned.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, those things maybe elaborate on what I've done in my previous role. You can do that in interview. I kept my motivational letter always to talk about the personal stuff, about the stuff that is not included in CV. You know, like people can see what I've done and what I've studied in my CV, but in the letter of motivation, I would just say like, this is me, I like this and that's why I want to work here. But, and I had another question, what do you think about unpaid internships? I'm asking because there are many opinions. I don't have an opinion on it because I also understand that the company is getting somebody who's untrained and they have to start from scratch. So, they might not want to spend that much money on that person. But on the other hand, it kind of puts some students in unfair position because people who come from a family background that has a lot of money are able to allow this, like they have allowance maybe from the parents and some people cannot simply live out of 500 euros a month. Just an example.
This is getting a bit repetitive, but again, it depends, right? So that if you do a first internship, and it's your first internship, and it's with a company like a non-profit organization or an NGO, if they don't pay, I can understand it. So let's say you start to do an internship at Doctors Without Borders or at Greenpeace, and they pay close to zero. I would understand that because you're working on a bigger cause, right? And these companies are very depending on money that they receive from private persons. So that's one. Two, if you start to work for a company that's commercial, a commercial company, so in the private sector, right? Then I would say they absolutely need to pay you a tuition, an internship fee, because otherwise it will be free labor. I think free labor is not okay if it's in the private sector. This is about a first internship. That's usually a couple of €100 a month, right? Depending on the country that you do the internship. If you do a second internship, you have a little bit of experience, or a third internship, maybe a fourth, if people want to do that. Then I would absolutely say no. You need to pay.
Yeah. Is there a leeway? Can I, for example, if I bring it up as a candidate, like the job description already mentions how much would I more or less make, like an intern? Could I say, okay, I see, but also I've already done, for example, the Kaki, she has done 3. So for the third one, could she say could she say something in the sense like, I've already done 2 internships and I'm sorry, but I would like to already receive at least a little bit of money because I have some previous experience. Like, is there a leeway in candidate for just to dare to do this? Like, is it okay to do it?
I mean, if you feel that you want to receive an intern fee, then you should absolutely discuss that because both of the parties should be happy when you start, right? So the employer should be happy and the employee should be happy. But I think if you really want to earn a market a salary that's conform to what the market pays, then you should apply for a job.
Fair enough. Enough of roasting. Okay. I was just always interested in this.
Thomas, as you said before, I believe that professional experience for you as a recruiter is very important in CV as well as education. And what about the volunteering and hobbies? Is it important to mention it in CV or?
Yeah. So I think of course that's important, and I think it's important to mention on your CV as well. I mean, if you also want to leave an impression about the person that you are, right? So voluntary work, absolutely. I mean, it also shows that you're not only working for yourself, but that you're also trying to contribute something to society. I'm still very much in the conviction that if I do voluntary work, I also do it for myself to feel better, and it's good that I help society with it as well. That's why I do. I will feel better, and I help other people as well. I help society. So I think that's why people do voluntary work in general, because being altruistic, as they say it, doing something without needing to have a benefit for yourself, I think there are only a very few people in the world that actually do that. But yeah, put it on, of course.
Okay, perfect. So
Dennis, don't forget to put that we're doing podcast in your CV.
No, but I mean, for instance, if you do the podcast, right? You do the podcast because you want to have fun, but also because you want to see your friends more often, probably. Even you're living in the Netherlands in this, and you are living in France, Carolina. So I think you want to see each other, but you also want to inform people, right? You want to help people, but you do it for yourself.
Yeah, we do it for
fun. And maybe it's the way also to show that I don't know that I'm curious.
What about running? I just put running in my CV. Like, I love running. Maybe the recruiter also loves running. We can go for run. Let's do 10K together.
If you like running, you can also put on. Some people like to run marathons, right?
Yeah.
Or half marathons, or do mud races or mud runs, or whatever it is they like to do. So you can also say, hey, I run a couple of times a week, and I've done the Marathon of New York. I mean, that also shows what you do, but also what you've achieved or what you want to try to do.
Yeah. No, I mean, exactly. Like, when you said this example, my first reaction was like, oh, okay. Like, it's interesting. You know? Like, it's a topic to discuss.
I didn't do the Marathon of New York. I didn't, by
Thomas!
I would never.
I would love to.
Now we've kind of closed the first block. Like, we have our CV, we have our motivation letter. We found the job we like, we tailored it, we sent it over. Now we get the interview part, which is the more exciting part of it. Well, when we do. Because I've also sent out like 100 applications and I got no response. But once I get the job interview, what do I need to prepare for it? Like, is there like a holy grail of questions that you ask every single candidate?
What's really important, but this is more important for companies to do, is let's have this hypothetical job of a business analyst. Or maybe let's keep it close to what we are talking about here, Carolina's job of a regional manager, right? Regional sales. We've had the part of opening a job, publishing a job, getting in applicants, and making the first selection based on the CV and the short phone call that you have with the recruiter. Usually, this recruiter will ask you questions about your salary expectations, when you are available, if you are doing something else right now, when you will get in your last grades, or when you are delivering your thesis, if you're still finishing up your finalizing your studies, when you will get your degree, your papers. Questions like those, right? Then we have the first selection, and then to the first interview, you usually have a conversation with the hiring manager. So the person you will be reporting to in your new job. What HR and talent acquisition should be very supportive to the business is the interviewing methodology. So you have a couple of ways to do an interview, right? You can have an open interview. You can have a non-structured interview, unstructured. You can have it semi-structured or completely structured. And in general, this middle way is the best way. So you have a semi-structured interview, in which you, as a hiring manager and as a hiring team, so the hiring team is a team that is working together on hiring the best person for the job. And that's usually the recruiter, the hiring manager, someone in the team of the hiring manager, and one or two people within the organization. That could be a stakeholder. So let's say you were working as a regional manager. You will also be working with the team that is onboarding the clients or the new customers, and maybe someone random in the organization, so that someone in legal could be interviewing someone in HR, for instance. And what you do is, as a hiring team, you decide which questions you need to ask to get a good impression if a person is fit with the job, yes or no. And you need to ask each and every candidate the same set of questions, because in that way you will compare you will not compare the candidates to each other, but you will compare the answers that they give to each other in the end. Okay. And you need to really write it down as a company. So as a candidate, you can also expect that if you enter an interview, that the people that are interviewing you, they're also interviewing other people, and they will ask those people the same questions. So that's one, right? But your question was, is there a fixed set of questions that companies use in interviews? I think if a company is serious about recruitment, yes. But the list of questions is long enough to have a diverse pool of questions. So it might be that they ask you questions about the values of the company, and if you fit with those values, and they maybe have 10 to 20 questions per value available. So they will ask you one out of those 20 questions for a value. So yeah, I think usually there is a fixed set of questions, a questions database.
And but I'm gonna pick one hypothetical question. For example, tell us your 3 qualities and your 3 deficiencies, for example. Would you want me to be absolutely honest, very honestly, tell you 3 deficiencies, because I know myself? Or would you want like this perfect candidate that always turns it into something positive, I work too much, or something like that?
Yeah, sure. So the perfect candidate doesn't exist, right? No. So you always have deficiencies in people. And I think it's good, and you show that you're very self-reflective if you can tell what you still have to learn or develop. So for instance, I can be very unstructured. So I would be honest about that. And I would say, hey, I need tools and guidance and people surrounding me that can help me to bring structure to what I do. So no, never hide deficiencies or things that you're not good at. I mean, just be honest and open about it, because in the end, you want to start to do a job. You really want that job, so you should be honest about that, and you should have 80% match, right? But the other 20%, you should be in a stretch, and you should be able to learn and develop. Especially if you apply for the first time, if it's your first job, and the people that are hiring you, or the company that is hiring you, they know that you still have to learn and that you need to grow.
What about lying? Can you tell when people are bullshitting you? Like, this guy is just fucking around.
It depends. I mean, if they've been to acting school when they were very young, you can probably not tell, right?
Fair enough.
But no, of course not. I mean, I think everybody lies every once in a while, whether it's a big or a small lie. But no, you cannot tell. But I think in the end, a company or your colleagues, they will find out. If you tell a very, very, very big lie, if you lie about finishing your study and you didn't, and in the end, people will find out. And I mean, if you lie and you can live with yourself, go ahead.
Let's keep going about the honesty. I like this topic. Thomas, what if you ask me a question that I don't have an answer for? Like, for example, imagine that you ask me a question, have you ever led a project that you knew that wouldn't succeed? But me, for example, I have never been in this kind of situation. So is it better to tell you that I have never been in this kind of situation, or just make up something really fast? By the way, I'm always making up something really fast, because I'm really scared to tell that I have never been in this situation, except for the jokes that we're making here.
Yeah. So what you could do, right, is you could say, hey, please give me 30 seconds to think about this question. Then you really take the time to think. There are companies that give each and every candidate, they say you need to take 30 seconds before you speak right now, because some people are very outgoing, extroverts, some people are introvert. And then they balance out the difference between introverts and extroverts by giving people the time to think. Mandatory. So you can always say they don't give you that option, or they don't ask you to take the time to think about your answer, and you're not sure if you have an answer. You can say, okay, give me a couple of seconds to think about this. And then you really start to think, right? Is it really true that I never worked on a project in which we had a lot of difficulties, or we could not reach the deadline on time? Because you've been working, you went to university, I assume, and you also had to work with your fellow students on projects. So you can also give an example out of that area. Or within your internship, maybe you worked in a project, or you had a difficult colleague you need to cope with, and you can give that example. So, I mean, there's always something, right? Or maybe at home, when you were working with your parents on something, or when I was doing some do-it-yourself with my dad when I was 15 years old, and we faced some difficulties because he wanted me to do something in his way, but I wanted to take another route in crafting that chair that we were creating together, or whatever, or working in the garden, or I mean, there's always something you can think of, but you just need to take your time. And if you really don't have an answer, you can say, hey, I thought about it, I don't have an answer right now, can we park it until the end of the interview, and maybe something will come up in my mind.
And could you ask, I guess behind this question, what you really want to see is how the people can handle stressful situations or when something is failing. Could you maybe ask, why are you asking me this? Just to give the reason, maybe explain it to the candidate, we're asking you this because of this and that. That might actually help me to think of an example where I could come up with a good answer.
Yeah. You can always ask a follow-up question, right? Which is good. So why are you asking this? Or can you specify a bit more? Can you elaborate on this or on that?
Sorry, I'm just saying this just for people not to be shy. Maybe just be a little bit more outgoing, if it's in your personality, of course, because everybody is different. But I'm just asking if it's okay, some people have...
Of course that's okay.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to make mistakes, right? And don't be afraid to say wrong things, because that's not happening a lot, right? What's very good, now we're talking about giving an answer to a question, you have a methodology called the STAR methodology. If you draw a 5-point star on paper, or a 4-point star on paper, let's start with the 4-point star, because that's where it all started. The STAR methodology is an abbreviation, it's an acronym. It means situation, task, action, and result. So whenever you answer a question, it's always good to explain something about the situation that you were in, if you give an example. So it's really giving an answer to a question by mentioning an example, right? So for instance, the question might be, can you tell me something about a difficult situation you had with a colleague in the past, and how did you cope with that? And then you can say something about the situation you were in, then what your tasks were within that situation, within that given situation. What did you do? Which actions did you take? And then what was the result in the end? And if you always take these 4 steps in giving an answer to a question in a job interview, you will be very consistent. So, and you will keep a certain amount of calmness and the pace in what you describe. So describe the situation, describe the tasks you had, the actions that you took, and the result that you achieved. That's the 4-point star. If you want to go a bit further, you can also reflect on that. And that's the 5th point of the star, of the 5th leg of the star. So then you have STARR. So after result, you discuss your own reflection. And that reflection can be what you've learned, what you would do different in the future, and maybe a little bit about the entire meta view, the bird view on the situation. Or you can ask a follow-up question, right? Was this clear to you? Is this a good answer to the question? Yes or no? So if you Google STAR methodology, you can dive into this way of answering questions a bit deeper for the people that are listening.
STAR methodology, don't Google STAR.
Thomas, I remember when I did my first job interview for an internship for a chemical company, I really didn't care about the company at all. It was a chemical company, and they asked me why I wanted to get an internship there. Being honest, I would just say because I need it for money.
You need somebody who needs to work, I need money, let's do this.
I would just say it like this. I mean, can I say it like this, or it's completely stupid?
Let's face it, right? Most people in the world, we are in a bubble. We went to university, we got our college degrees, we all have a decent job, and we probably do the work that we love, with passion. And that's what you wish everybody. But the majority of people in the world are not working from within their passion. They are working to earn a salary to be able to pay for their life expenses. And then you have a big chunk of the world that's somewhere in between. They're doing what they like, they're earning a salary, and they can live their life. But a very small part of the global population is absolutely doing work from within their passion, and they are doing what they love. And you wish that for everybody. In general, you don't make a good impression if you say, hey, you need someone for this job, I have this skill, I need the money. Money is a part of it, right? But if you earn a lot of money without having fun, then you will not be in a job for a very, very long time. That's what I expect.
Also, maybe you're not the best candidate, right?
Yeah. So you actually have a very nice and short book that's really about this topic. And it's a book from Héctor García. That's a writer. And the title of the book is, if I'm correct, I just Googled it so that I'm sure that I pronounce it correctly. The title of the book is called Ikigai, the Japanese secret to a long and happy life. And within that book, they really explain in a Venn diagram. They draw 4 circles on paper. And in the middle, it's Ikigai. And Ikigai is being in a situation in your life where you are completely and utterly happy with what you're doing. It's basically the art of being right in the sweet spot of being alive and having a worthy life, having a purpose in life, having a meaning in life. And if you take a look at the Venn diagram, it tells you about what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you are good at. And if you combine those four things, the things that you love, the things that something that the world needs, what you can be paid for, so the salary that you can earn, or the profit that you can make, or the income that you can have, and what you are good at. And if you combine those four, then you are really working on your passion, you have a profession, and you have a mission that you can work on, and a vocation, and that's called Ikigai. So that's really the sweet spot. And I must say, I'm not sure if I'm in that spot already, right? It's very difficult to reach that sweet spot. But at least if you start to do something that you love, and that you're good at, and what the world needs, and you can find a job in that direction, then you are on a good way.
Good way to become an Iki person. Ikigai.
Yeah, I think so.
Ikigai.
It's a start. It's a start.
Yeah. And it's a very short book, and if people are interested in getting to know more about themselves, what they want to do, where they can grow, it's a very nice way to start reading about that.
It's summer. Let's read a book. Right? Next to the pool.
Why not?
Exactly.
Next to the ocean.
Like you take it on vacation, after vacation you have it done. So guys, remember, Ikigai.
Yeah, I'll put, what I will do, I'll put a link to the book in the chat over here.
Please.
And then you can share it in the description of the podcast.
One of the recruiter asked me, Carolina, who are you? Just at the end of the interview, she was like, Carolina, who are you? And when she asked me this question for the first time, I was really confused. Like, what are candidates supposed to answer? Like, are we supposed to tell our qualities? Are we supposed to tell our character? Are we supposed to tell what we like to do? Or like, what is the purpose of this question?
Yeah, and I'm not a big fan of these types of questions, right? Because you can interpret them in multiple ways. But I would just respond with the first thing that comes to mind, right? So
I would say I'm a dumbass.
Yeah, you could say you're a dumb. I know. No, but personally, I'm not a big fan of these type of questions. You can tell maybe something about. Can you tell me something about yourself that's not on your CV? And then you're more specific. But it's a very unspecific question, and that's very difficult to me. But I would respond from the bottom of my heart, right? So, what did you respond, by the way?
As you, like, I was so confused. I think I was just saying, like, everything that came up to my mind. Like, I was like, I'm a very sport woman. I like to have, like, a balance between my professional and my personal life, and stuff like this. But
yeah, so just respond in the first way, the first way that you think, right? I mean, that's super, super, super important. But to me, these questions are a bit weird, maybe. It's always good to tell something about you as a person, right? And when you're behind camera, that you use your hands to explain something, and we all are all doing digital interviews nowadays, so be a bit more specific, and you could exaggerate in video, and that's important because you reach more people then. You use your face in speaking, and you can say 1, 2, 3, or you can use your hands and do. I mean, I think that's really important, but be genuine. And behavioral interview questions that stress your behavior, the way that you respond, the way that you solve things, what you do, they are so much more important than questions like, how many tennis balls do you think that the United States produces on a yearly basis? Because in this way, you can respond, right? You can do the math. You can say, hey, the United States, they have this many people living there, this many inhabitants, civilians. Let's assume that X percentage of the people in the States play tennis, and that they use this many tennis balls a year, they lose this many balls. You can always do that. But this is something about your general knowledge, maybe, and seeing your basic math skills. It's not about who you are as a person and what you solved, or the way that you work, or the way that you behave in certain situations, which is so much more important.
I need to revisit my LinkedIn profile after this. Okay, Thomas, but is there something that a candidate should never say during a job interview? Is there like something that really can piss you off, or not piss you off, but you're like, no, this is bad? Can you think of something?
Yeah, good question.
Like, what would you really hate?
Well, I would hate it if people are racist and if people are very insulting. But to me, it makes sense, right? That you don't do that at all. One thing I would not do is to immediately start to talk about money, or immediately say, hey, what's in it for me? You can do that at the end of the interview. You can always say, hey, but we also should discuss this because it's important, but never start with that. I think it's very bad if you don't speak at all, and if a hiring manager or the person that is interviewing you is speaking more than you are. So I really would say, if you notice that you are not talking enough or that you're not having enough time to stress the importance of a question that you're trying to answer, that you need more time. You can also always redirect the interview if you like in a polite way. Maybe it's not about what you say, it's more about what you don't say. So if you notice that something is not going well, speak up in a polite way. I think that's most important. So if you notice that things are not going well, don't be silent. Just say, hey, can you maybe specify this, or can you give me a bit more time to explain? Let's focus a bit more on the technical part of the interview, or let's maybe focus a bit more on this. I mean, there's not a lot that you can do wrong if you stick to common sense, if you stick to being a nice person and being nice to each other. I think that's so important. Yeah.
And what about physical appearance nowadays, like tattoos, piercings, or is this still viewed negatively, or you just don't care?
Yeah, for me personally, I don't care. At all.
But are there companies that would be like, oh, maybe this guy's too tattooed?
I think so. Yeah, I think there are still companies that don't like it if you have face piercings or tattoos that are visible. I can imagine that if you have a job in which you need to be very representative and in which it's required that you won't insult other people, other cultures in any way, that companies require this. But I think if you have a huge tattoo on your face that is swearing or that is saying something that is impolite.
Mike Tyson.
Yeah, but I mean, this is, again, it's about finding that balance, right?
Yes.
To me, there's no difference in wearing a headscarf or having face piercings or having a tattoo on your arm, wearing glasses, wearing a certain type of shoes or trousers, to me, there's no difference. And there shouldn't be. Yeah, and I think this focusing on that part of diversity and inclusion within your company is utterly important. Yeah. I mean, I can imagine that you say to your employees, please don't wear flip-flops to the office, or try keep it neat. I wouldn't wear my bikini or my speedo to the office, my swimsuit. Yeah, but I mean that's something completely different than being able to be yourself. Right? Yeah. Be who you are, whether you have a tattoo on your arm, whether you wear face piercings, whether you like to wear a t-shirt or button up and wear a tie. Be who you want to be.
Now we're at the end of the recruitment process, more or less. At least from a candidate perspective, like what you can do. Right? You prepare your CV, you got an interview, you had the interview, now we're in the end. But what happens now? Like now I'm sitting and I'm waiting for the response. Like, are these guys gonna get to me? What are you guys doing in this time when I'm waiting for you to get back to me?
Yeah, so either we are interviewing other people, because we always do, right? We cannot interview everybody at the same time. And we need time to think. And we are collecting the feedback we want to give you. So I think we've missed one important part, and that is that you also have to prepare your interview as a candidate. So you need to do research on the company, you need to do research on the job. You can think of hypothetical questions they might ask you. You read the job description. You write down questions that you have, and you ask those questions as well in the interviews. Usually, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 interviews for a job. It depends on the type of role, depends on the company, on their way of selecting people. I think that's really important to stress. Then, when the interview is done, feedback is collected. They write it down, and if all's well, the recruiter gets back to you, or the hiring manager gets back to you, depending on the size of the company. If it's a huge company, usually recruiters pick up the feedback conversation. If it's a smaller company, the hiring manager will call you back. In startups and scale-ups, you really see that getting that call and receiving that feedback might take a bit longer. It could be, or they move very fast, but there are less people working there. They're all very busy with growing the company, and sometimes they will never call you back. Always ask for a phone number or an email address, or both. If you end the interview, hey, where can I reach you? Because if they don't call you back, you can always call them. But in general, to give an answer to your question, feedback is collected and prepared to share with you. And then if all's well, you receive a phone call after the interview within 5 to 7 business days, within 1 working week, I would say.
Or
you receive, and then you receive feedback, and they will, if they're very self-reflective, they will also ask you for feedback.
I like that actually. I really appreciate it when they ask like, how did the interview go? Because I had some pretty bad experiences as well during a recruitment phase, and they didn't ask for feedback, but I sent them an email. I said like, guys, this wasn't cool. Like, this wasn't really cool.
Of course, and you can always feel the freedom to do that, right? If you think something is not cool or they can improve something, you can always share.
Okay. Well, thanks Thomas for the first part, for giving us guidance on how to land the job. And let's just chat for the second a little bit.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like Thomas, for example, nowadays, the world is all connected on the social media. So are you checking Facebook or Instagram of the potential future employees?
Yeah, so if we check it as a company,
maybe in general, like, is it a practice?
It can be a practice if we do a pre-employment screening. So if you start to work at a company that's regulated, like Worldline is, in a lot of countries we operate in. So in the Netherlands, we are regulated by the Dutch Central Bank. In Sweden, we are regulated. In Germany, we are regulated company. So then we are required by law to perform a pre-employment screening. And what is a pre-employment screening? We check your background. It's a background check. So we check, in some countries, we do a credit check. Whether you have big debts, yes or no. We can do a check for your education, for your college degrees. We can do a background check with your former employers or colleagues. And we can also do a social media check. So for some roles, that is really required because we need to be very thorough with some roles. For instance, if you work in fraud or in DPO, or you will start to work as an attorney, we need to know that we can rely on you. And then we perform these checks, but we will always be open about it. So we will never do it secretly.
So, for example, if you have a 26-year-old future employee that you're checking his Facebook and you find, for example, a picture when he was 15-year-old with a bottle of vodka, like, does it bother you? Is it okay? Or like, what does it show about the employee for you?
Well, if I see this person 1 week ago with a bottle of vodka, I would be... maybe I would be questioning myself, but this is also a person's private life, right? But if you want to keep something private, then keep it private. And don't put it online where the whole world can see it. So I think there's a big difference, right? I mean, Facebook, yeah, that's about your private life in general. Instagram can be about your private life. LinkedIn is about work life, that's clear. TikTok, private life. But if you really want to keep something private, don't put it online or protect it, right? Don't make it publicly available to everybody in the world. That's my general advice. Yeah. I couldn't care less if you drink a bottle of vodka every week. I would be concerned about it. I would be very concerned. On a personal level. But if you don't, then don't put it out there for the whole world to see.
Kaki, we should maybe revisit our accounts.
Yeah, what I was thinking about, like, I'm going to get a check.
But that would be my advice. If you know that you apply for a job where they will perform a background check, make sure that your accounts are neat and tidy.
Or private. Has it ever happened to you that you like threw away an application? Like,
yeah,
no,
absolutely.
Yeah. Why?
Because people were really sending standard stuff and didn't apply to a job that could be a potential fit. They were just applying for 25 jobs at the same time at the same company. Okay. And then we've replied, hey, please be more specific in your applications because you could be a fit, but not with 25 roles we have open right now. You always get a lot of spam from recruiters, external recruitment agencies, or people with fake accounts. That also happens, right?
Is it some kind of fraud, or why do they do this?
I don't know if you could call it fraud. It could be. It's more like fake applications. So you get hacked as a company, or there are robots online active online that are sending in applications, automated applications. To be honest, I've never got in depth on why that happens, but it happens. And if we discover that someone is committing fraud while applying for a job, so they tell us that they got a college degree or a university degree and they actually don't have it, then we stop with the process. We stop the process.
Has this ever happened to you? Like, have you had somebody?
Not a lot, but I think 4 or 5 times in my career.
It's quite a lot. I thought you would say like once. Yeah, once.
I don't know, 45 times, yeah. But I'm working for 10 years now, so that's once or twice a year, right?
What if you're reading a letter of motivation, there is a name of another company, like there's another company that the guy is applying for, but there's, for example, I'm applying for Isis Pharma, but I write Bioderm.
That's again what I say, right? If you be personal, so write a personal short introduction is better than a long motivational letter.
When you change just the name of the company.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mistake, and people make mistakes, but you're not very detailed then, right? So Denise.
But it happens to us, especially to young people. I mean, we need to do our study, we need to look for a job, then, for example, working as a bartender, so, I mean, it takes so much time, so sometimes we just want to ease it up a little bit, and just use the same letter of motivation, just we change the name of the company and we think it's okay.
I mean, you should be serious about applying for a job, right? So, yes, it's a mistake, and if you're a good match on paper with the role, then we will not reject you because of that one small mistake. But it's a bit clumsy.
Yeah. Also, you learn from your mistakes. Like it happened to me once. Regardless to say, I didn't even get a response. But then I was like, of course, you're not gonna get a response if you send a letter like that. So you learn.
Yeah, it happens, right? But you can always, if you notice that you made that mistake, or if they point it out to you, you can say, yeah, I mean, I made a mistake. I'm sorry.
I remember once I was asking for a letter of recommendation for one of my professor. I was like, "Hi, sir. Please, could you write a letter of recommendation for me?" And her reply was like, "So first of all, I'm not a sir." And I was like, "Oh my god, this is really bad."
Whoops. Yeah, but I mean, this is making assumptions, right? You can make assumptions, but you should check those assumptions. And if you're not sure, then don't make those assumptions and ask a question. Yeah. Then you can say Mr. or Mrs., right?
Thomas, is it more interesting for you as a recruiter if somebody is referring to you someone?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Because if we get a referral, then I expect the one that gives you a referral to be very serious about this person, that he or she is referring to us. And it gives me the impression that we can rely on a person. So, yeah, I think it matters. But you will never treat a referral differently.
But I mean, there's a motivation also for people to refer to people because they can get some sort of compensation for it, right?
Yeah, so sometimes, so companies use a referral bonus. There's been research on it as well, that handing out a bonus, like the actual money, isn't a great motivation for people in general. What is a great motivation is an experience, right? So you can say, hey, if you refer someone to us and this person is still working with us after 3 months, you can go to Hawaii on the cost of the company.
Oh. Perfect.
Oh, okay.
That's much better motivation, I have to agree. Absolutely. 100%.
So but yeah, referral bonuses exist and I think they can work, but in general, handing out an experience to your employees is better.
Do you think that smaller firms take inspiration from large companies? I'm talking about like Google and Amazon, that they have even manuals on internet. On YouTube, they have videos on how to prepare for these interviews and what you gotta do. Maybe the question I should structure differently. Is there a huge change in the system of recruitment now, taking use of new technologies?
Oh, absolutely. But those are two different topics, right? I mean, I think what companies like the companies that you mentioned are doing very well is helping people that apply for jobs to prepare for interviews. And so, for instance, Google has, I've looked at Google multiple times. I've read books about the way that they recruit. I've been visiting their web pages for a long time already to get inspiration. And that's great. I mean, you not only help people to prepare for participating in an interview at your company, but you also already filter out a lot of questions people might have in an FAQ, right? In the frequently asked questions box. And that really helps. So yes, it's in general a very good thing.
So are these companies setting a trend?
I think they are. Yeah.
Okay.
And what is the technology topic? You have video analysis tools nowadays. You have a lot of... Sorry,
what does that mean? I don't know.
Oh, yeah. So a video analysis means that if you have an interview, there's a camera present that analyzes your facial expressions. And they can tell if a person is lying, is telling the truth, is being genuine, if someone is being open about stuff, yes or no. So that's a trend that you see. I'm very curious about how that will develop. Voice analysis, the way that you use your voice, and if you're being hesitant, or if you're thinking about something, if you're being genuine, if you're being honest, yes or no. And then you have all these kinds of assessment tools and gamification, right? So if you apply for a job, we ask you to play a couple of games to test your cognitive skills or your coding skills. And that will be the first selection instead of checking your CV.
Oh, I love that.
I think, in the end, CVs will mostly disappear because it's more about skill. And maybe applying with LinkedIn is already a possibility at a lot of companies. At Worldline, you can also apply with LinkedIn, with your LinkedIn account. But I think the CV will mostly disappear, and we will start to focus more and more and more on asking people to test their skills when they apply for a job. Through gamification and really focus on that skill set of people.
I love it. I think that's a good thing. Filters out a lot of bullshit, right? A lot of
yes,
irrelevant stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of companies are still hiring on gut feeling, and hiring on gut feeling is, in general, not a good thing. You can trust your gut, but you really need to test people, and you need to find proof that someone is and will be a good match with the job.
Thomas, also, when we were preparing ourselves for this interview, we have found on the internet articles with the weirdest question ever asked during job interviews. Like, you gave us an example about how many tennis balls can fit in the US. So I have found more questions, something like, you've been given an elephant, you can't give it away or sell it, what would you do with the elephant? Or if you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be and why? So what's up with these questions?
If you were an animal, what kind of animal would you be? It's a nice icebreaker.
Ah, okay.
I think it's a nice icebreaker, but that's it.
It's just for easing up the interview, right?
I would use it for. I don't use these questions. I would say, hey, can you tell me something about yourself that's not on your CV? That's a question that I almost every time I do an interview that I ask. Can you tell me something about your personal life? Because I'm interested in who you are as a person. But I've never asked a question about if there would be an elephant in a room here, what would you do with it?
Yeah, I think isn't it something like they are trying to see like your personality, for example? Like if you had a choice between two superpowers, which would you choose or something? So it's like showing your personality, like what kind of person are you?
Right? What does it really tell? If I would have to choose between being invisible and flying.
What would you choose, Thomas?
I would choose flying, but that's because I just want to. I think that's about the adventure, right? So it could tell you something, but I mean, it's not.
It doesn't really give you an idea of who you are as a person, right?
Not, in my opinion, not really. It's fun. It can be fun.
But there are better questions to figure it out.
Yeah. So maybe, what's the most exciting thing that you ever did in your life, or is there something that you don't have in your skill set or in the way that you are as a person that you would like to have? I think that's better. Or what skill would you like to possess that you don't possess now? Or what personality trait would you like to have that you don't have right now? I think those are better questions. Yeah.
And when it comes to selling yourself during an interview, like we thought, like you should sell yourself, but also not oversell it. How to find a balance?
Yeah, well,
you can ask, like, who is this guy? Who is this lazy person? Or is this person, some people pretend like, yeah, I wake up every single day at 5 a.m., I go for a run, then I do my breakfast. It's bullshit. Nobody does that every single day.
Well, I think probably there are people who do that every single day, but I mean...
Oh, kudos to them. I wish I was like that.
No, well, I don't. But I mean, I think discipline and rhythm are very important in having for me, they are really important in having a balanced life, right? So I wake up and I take a shower, or I go to the gym and I meditate and I have my breakfast and I read a little bit and then I start my day. And I try to do that every single day, which is fine, right? Rhythm is good. But I mean, how would you sell yourself? I think selling yourself is really about being genuine and about being honest. What can you add? And what can you bring to the table for a company? Well, it's also about being honest about what you still need to learn, or the things that you don't possess, the skills that you don't possess that they ask within this vacancy. So selling yourself is that you can say, hey, these and these and these and these things I'm not concerned about. I can do this. I'm very confident in that. But these and these two topics, I still need to develop myself. And will there be a possibility for this? And do you think that there will be a big problem in my performance over the first year? So selling yourself is all about balancing it out, being honest. And yes, of course, you should show some negotiation skills when they make you a job offer. And you should negotiate a bit, because that also shows that you want to fight for yourself, and that you can push back a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So, my last question, I know that Kaki has some more. Not only been looking for the weirdest questions, but also for the weirdest actions or things that people did during an interview. So, and we found 3 examples. One of them was the interviewer asked the candidate to jump out of the window. The second one was they threw a pen on the ground and just let it there, but purposefully. And the third one was, I think they started shouting or yelling at the candidate just to see how they react. Why do they do these things?
Yeah. So I think in general you have those are cases, right? So starting to yell at someone, you immediately get in stress mode. So how do you respond? Putting a pen on the floor, I think I've done that as well. When I was interviewing for an office manager.
Really?
Yeah, because in my previous job at recharge.com, we were hiring someone to become our office manager. Because we were growing from 30 people to 100 within a year. The office was growing, we needed an office manager. And then I just grabbed a paper and I threw it on the ground in a couple of places. And then the people that came in for the interview, the candidates, we checked if they noticed that there was stuff lying around and if they picked it up, yes or no. Because that shows that they care and that they want to keep a nice and a clean environment.
I don't know if I would pick it up. I'm thinking if it wouldn't be like rude. Am I showing them like they're being messy?
Lionel.
Yeah, but I mean, it shows that you care. So I think in general that's a good thing. Asking someone to jump out of the window, I would say, okay, yeah, go screw yourself.
You go first.
But yeah, you go first and I'll follow. But yeah, of course you have weird stuff happening, but you also have sometimes situations in interviews in which a candidate gets very nervous, in which a situation in which people started to cry. I had a candidate fainting once, right during the interview. And then you really need to be able, as if you are interviewing someone, to calm people down. You need to know what to do. You need to get help if it's needed, right? If someone is fainting, you need to get help. But weird stuff can happen.
Thomas, I have two last questions for you. When we read about millennials and their professional life, we often find information such as we are lazy, narcissistic, comfortable, and even though we would like to have enough money to live a good life, we are not going to be hell-bent on money in the workplace. Like, we are not going to do our maximum to have the money. The articles also says that millennials is the generation that is the most likely to face a burnout, not to come to work because of the psychological problems, and that death in the family and sickness can be only an excuse to stay at home. Another thing that I have found about millennials says that millennials don't seek for a better opportunity in the corporation with a better salary or a social status, but we want rather a comfortable job and flexible working hours. So what do you think about this affirmation? Do you think it's true?
The research that has been done tells us a lot, right? I think because of let's leave Corona out of the equation and COVID, because a lot of people lost their jobs and there are not a lot of jobs available in some sectors. But in general, the access to new jobs and to information and to entering the employment market, there's a lot and there's a lot to do and there are a lot of options. So I think that because people can see they have more options and because people can see more about the lives of other people, the competition goes up, right? Because you compare yourself to other people. And you start to compare yourself to more and more and more people because you have access to more people through social media, internet, the way that we communicate nowadays. It has become a bit more flat, so you don't go in depth a lot. Maybe it's a bit superficial even. And I think the access to a lot of jobs and to job opportunities that is going up and up and up makes people maybe a bit lazy. Being behind the screen all day, I think that also makes you lazy. But I see a lot of early career starters that are very ambitious and that really want to make something of it and they want to learn. They're eager to learn and eager to develop themselves. But you also see the tendency that if people are graduated, maybe when I started 10 years ago, the salaries were a bit lower for recent graduates than what people are asking now. So sometimes you see, hey, I have a lot of options. I'm in high demand as a graduate because in the Western world, the jobs are there for the picking. So I will ask a very high salary to start with. And that's what you also see. So maybe the laziness is more a position of luxury than it is about actually wanting to be lazy. Millennials that I work with in general are very ambitious and really want to make something out of their work and life.
But also I think it's true that we want to have balance between professional and personal life. Like, for example, me, I'm not ready to work since 8 a.m. till 7 p.m. I want to stop at 4 p.m., 5 p.m. and then enjoy my life. Like, I don't think it's something that we need to be seen as a negative feature.
I mean, it's not healthy to work that many hours a day, right? You need a balance. And especially with doing digital work, that's super important. So you need a balance in having a healthy life, having a healthy mind, and also reaching the goals that you want to reach in your career, amongst others. it's not healthy for people to work 60 to 80 hours a week. It's old-fashioned even, right? Because it's still from the time that Henry Ford ran his factories for creating the Ford automobiles. You work 8 hours a day, you have free time 8 hours a day, and you sleep 8 hours a day. 8 plus 8 plus 8 is 24. Nowadays, that doesn't really make sense anymore because we're not working in factories. We are not doing work on the belt that we need to construct physical products in a lot of cases. We have white-collar jobs behind the desk, so it's a big difference. But we are still working in that model, 8-8-8.
Would you be in for like shorter either work time, like 6 hours a day, or shorter work week, like 4 days a week?
I think it depends on what people want, right? So I used to work 4 days a week. I'm dividing my hours usually the way that's convenient because I also work with people in the United States, so there's a big time difference. So sometimes I work 9 hours a day on Monday to Thursday, and then on Friday I work 4 hours. But I don't really think it's about the amount of hours that you work. It's really about the output, right? So I think we can be way more efficient in what we do, and then you can work less hours. Yeah, of course.
Do you see a difference between like generations such as baby boomers or generation X, Y, and Z? Do you see a difference between their personalities, the way how they work, how much time they want to sacrifice for a job and stuff?
Yeah, of course you see a difference. I mean, the digital generation is in general they're digitally savvy, right? So they know how to work with tools and find ways to do things in a different way. But you can also have people from the baby boom generation just right after in the 1950s that are very digitally savvy, and they are really on par with current developments. And you can have people that are born in 2002 and they are way behind. So I think it depends more on your personality and on the way that you can adapt to change than on the generation stereotype.
So we're in the end. Our last question usually is, what would you recommend? But you gave us already so many recommendations that we're not gonna bother you with this. Ikigai, STAR method.
Yeah, read the book Ikigai, and I'm looking at my bookshelf because I think it will be about work and reading. No, but read that book Ikigai. It's nice. It's very accessible, and take a long walk every day when you're working.
That's what my dad says.
And don't lose your curiosity, guys, because it's really nice to be in this podcast. Thanks.
Thank you for accepting our invitation.
So thanks guys for listening to the 4th International episode. We hope that you enjoyed it, and we really hope that it gave you some tips on how to land a job. Do not forget to keep your application short and snappy. And remember to pick up rubbish even in the workplace. In case you have any questions or suggestions, just shoot us a message at millennials.podcast@gmail.com or on our social media accounts. Now it's time to leave the office, and we should get a little sportier for our next episode. This podcast is made in cooperation with Theatre Palangir, and we would like to take this opportunity to say hi to our fellow actors and actresses. So see you next time. Yeah, right.